Welcome to the Benefits of Knowledge podcast with Lorne Curry of Curry Financial Group Limited. In this podcast, we are focused on helping businesses set up and manage their group benefit plan to protect and assist their most valuable assets. Join us on this journey where Lorne explores ways to help you develop effective and cost-efficient strategies for your business. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Benefits of Knowledge with Lorne Curry. Today, Lorne has a great guest on the show, and that is Isabelle Moreau. Isabelle has been a bilingual senior client executive with Teladoc Health, formerly known as Best Doctors, for 9 years. She has more than 25 years of customer service experience from different industries, including the area of benefits, and 13 years in various positions in the Employee Assistance Program field. Isabelle's educational background is in social work. Lorne, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Eric. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic. I know that Isabelle is going to be a fantastic guest. We were talking a little bit before the show, and she obviously has a lot of experience from her bio. My question is, because I've heard a little bit of the story, but my question to you is, how did you guys meet?
Well, it was quite a few years ago, Eric, and as you know, I like to play golf, so anytime there's an industry golf tournament, I'm usually there if possible. So Isabelle was sponsoring a hole with Best Doctors, and she was actually working in oyster bar.
Nice.
I had never had oysters before, and she talked me into trying. It was 2 or 3 different flavors. Maybe she could explain, Isabelle, how you got those flavors in there. I'm not sure how that worked.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi, Lorne. Yeah, we had hired actually a specialist in oysters, so it was not my doing. It was this company that we had hired.
All this time, I thought it was you that made those oysters.
Well, it sounds fantastic.
Okay. So you're right, Eric. Very excited to have Isabelle on the program today. As you said, she's had a ton of experience in this area. We're going to discuss today the background in social work and a lot of years in the Employee Assistance or EAP programs. It's going to be able to give us a lot of knowledge here. Okay, so before we jump into asking Isabelle all these questions we have, I just want to make a point that today we are specifically talking about services that are provided through one of our preferred partners, Empire Life. So not everything we're going to talk about today is offered through all companies. Even if they have Best Doctors, they may not have the other benefits we're talking about. So Empire actually include the benefits we're going to discuss in the extended healthcare benefit. So I just wanted to make sure people didn't mistake that this is going to be available in all carriers or all programs. Okay, so very specific to Empire Life today. So welcome, Isabelle. Thanks again for joining us today. Really looking forward to getting more information on the Best Doctors and I guess more information on Teladoc Health, because more people are probably going to recognize the name Best Doctors. So can you explain to me and our listeners the difference between Best Doctors and Teladoc Health?
Yes, for sure. Thank you for having me, Lorne. It's really a pleasure for me to talk about our services. So yes, basically, Best Doctors was bought by Teladoc in 2017. So I think it's important to mention the difference because as of January of 2022, we will retire the name Best Doctors and we will only use the name Teladoc for all of our services. So I think it's very important for the listeners to understand that. And like you said, we are better known under Best Doctors, but Teladoc has a lot of services to offer. So that's why it will become Teladoc Health.
I didn't realize it had been that long, 2017. So yeah. Well, yeah. I guess we're going to learn the name Teladoc Health. We got another year or so to continue here. So okay, so that's good. What can you tell me about the spectrum of health then, and what you can help with at Best Doctors Teladoc?
Absolutely. So, like I was mentioning with Teladoc Health, we have more services. So, it was a good marriage between Best Doctors and Teladoc. And really, what we want to do is to be able to offer a wide spectrum of health for the members that use a service. It can be from, issues that we would communicate with a family doctor with. And of course, mental health issues, but all the way to more severe conditions or issues that a member might have, like, for example, cancer, that often, unfortunately, we have calls about. So it's really from simpler issues for physical health. It can touch mental health from simple to more difficult situations, all the way to, the second opinion for physical health.
Okay, great. So I can, again, just from being in the industry quite a few years and remembering way back to when I used to sell some individual products, which was a long time ago, but I remember there used to be just a list of illnesses. And so now it looks like with the marriage of Teladoc and Best Doctors, it's a wide range of what you can help people with. So that's great.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just focus on the mental health for a moment. Maybe you can explain the impact it has had and maybe share some statistics with us.
Absolutely, yes. I have some good statistics that I took from the Sanofi survey. And, I was mentioning that we provide solutions for physical health and mental health. And I think sometimes people forget that our brains and bodies are connected. So I think it's very important to be able to help with physical and mental health issues. So up to 27% of people with heart disease and 20% of people with cancer will develop depression. So I think those are pretty significant numbers. And people with depression are 2 times more likely to have a stroke and 1.5 times more likely to develop cancer. So it's something really we have to think about. I wanted to talk a little bit about stress because that's, something that we see on a day-to-day basis, and stress can be very healthy as long as it basically works like a roller coaster. So we can be stressed during the day and it goes up, but it has to come back down, and it can go up and down like that because it's situational. But the problem is when the stress remains always high and can't come back down. So that's when it becomes an issue. But the statistics I wanted to share with you, the main sources of stress, 39% is personal finances. So that's also number 1 on the list when it comes to separation or divorce for couples. So that's a very important one. And we see 34% is the workload, and 32% is balancing work and life responsibilities. So we've seen that a lot during the pandemic with moms, when the schools were closed and daycares were closed. So it was very difficult for moms to do the schooling at home and take care of the kids. So we saw a higher percentage of resignations from moms. I wanted to say women, but it's really moms because of the higher responsibilities. Sorry, yes, Lorne?
So I'm just saying, so I guess obviously you've tracked mums and dads in that situation, right? But it's really the mums seem to be the one taking on that additional workload for the most part.
For the most part, yes. Another statistic I thought was interesting regarding the impact of stress, it's the difference how people react, depending on their age. So what we saw here, so age 18 to 34 versus 55 years old and older. When we talk about, for example, that they took at least 1 sick day due to stress in the past year, for the younger generation, 50%, and the older generation, only 21%. So we see in this, in those results that the older generation seems to be better equipped to deal with stress. For the workplace stress, it was so overwhelming in the past year that they have felt physically ill. Again, 42% for the younger generation, and the older generation was 23%. So those are, again, significant number. One statistic I wanted to share with your listeners, very often we don't think about absenteeism. We don't think about presenteeism, we think about absenteeism. But when it comes to cost, 80% is due to presenteeism and 20% is due to absenteeism. So those numbers are quite significant. And when we talk about absenteeism, 30% of disabilities are because of mental health claims. So it might be a new number for your listeners, but it is pretty much the average for different insurers. And within those claims, the cost is 70% because of mental health. So they are more costly than other claims that might come to the insurer.
That is a shocking number. The 70% of the cost is from the stress claims, mental health.
Exactly. Yes, mental health claims, yes.
Right. Do you think maybe the younger generation, I guess, probably hasn't been through maybe as much as us older folks, but do you think maybe a big factor is, since COVID had started, we go back to the mums or dads. I know, people that I know that are trying to help teach their kids online and stuff like that. I understand that is extremely frustrating, I guess maybe is one way of putting it. And so do you think maybe, again, as a grandparent, I'm not trying to teach anyone. My grandkids aren't that old enough yet, but the parents, besides work and running the house and now trying to be the teacher, do you think maybe that's just all piled up on the younger generation?
Absolutely, yes, because in this younger generation, yes, they would be young parents. And I think also it's all the uncertainty with this pandemic. I think the older generation, baby boomers, they've seen a lot more in life. So yes, they're more equipped to deal with stress. But yeah, the younger generation, I think it's been really stressful for them.
Right. And I can see, back to your earlier comment, where stress goes up during the day, but it has to come back down. That's the healthy way, right? But, because I know a lot of people say, well, I work better under pressure or under stress and stuff like that. But that's for a shorter period of time, right? So as long as you maybe you do perform better under those circumstances, but it has to come back down with that work life balance to try and control it.
Exactly, because very often people will be facing a very stressful work environment, but also a stressful personal life. So it never comes back down, so that's when it snowballs and it becomes too much at some point.
Right. Okay. All right, that's good. So, all right, so let's go right to what's the solution, or what solution does Best Doctors Tele-Doc have to help with these mental issues?
Yes, so we do have a service called Mental Health Navigator that is included with Empire Life. It's really a fantastic service in the sense that we were wondering what we could do to help in our healthcare system in Canada. And really there are a couple factors, one being the fact that it takes a long time to be able to access a psychologist and or psychiatrist. And so we wanted to make sure that we would have a solution for that. And the issue I would say we have in the healthcare system is the fact that our family doctors were kind of tasked to diagnose and prescribe for mental health issues. But if you think about it, family doctors are not specialists for mental health. And we see that up to 70% of the diagnosis and medication for mental health are made by family doctors. So I can tell you that when a family doctor will have the support from, someone like Best Doctors or Tele-Doc, they really appreciate that, because sometimes they don't really know how to help their patient with mental health issues. So when we were looking at that, we decided to create a service that would focus on making sure that the diagnosis, the treatment, and the medication are correct for the member. And also, we wanted to be able to do a follow-up after they start the counseling. So we're not offering the actual counseling, and that's when the EAP comes in place, right? So most employers in Canada have an EAP, so we will tap into that solution, or we will work with the member to find other solutions if they don't want to use the EAP, but they can get reimbursed by their benefits if they decide to go outside of the EAP. But we have a virtual meeting, so through video conference with a psychologist and or psychiatrist and the member, and they will see how they can help the member. So it can be the first time that a member consults someone for their mental health issues, and sometimes it would be kind of like a second opinion because they've been, seeing maybe already a therapist for months and months, sometimes years, and they're not feeling better. So we will see, okay, how can we help to start you on the right foot? We provide a nice report that they can present to their therapist, and we will go from there.
Right, so really working with the other professionals.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely, always. And if the member wants us to send a report to their family doctor, if the family doctor was involved with their issue, we will most definitely do that. And sometimes it's members that call us and they just want for us to find resources for them. Maybe their child is autistic and they want to have more information about that. So we can also help with, simpler situation when it doesn't necessarily warrant a diagnosis. But a lot of members, they really want to speak with a psychologist and or psychiatrist because those two specialties, they are the ones that can do a diagnosis. The other therapist cannot. And also only a psychiatrist can deal with medication. So often people don't know the differences, but that's really what those specialists would do.
Very good. All right. Interesting. Okay. All right. So that's the mental side, right? So can you provide us with a brief summary of the other services available through Best Doctors Teladoc for the physical health side?
Yes, we have great services for physical health as well. I thought I would explain to you briefly the telemedicine service. I think, most people know how it works, so I thought I would just give you the highlights of our service. So we offer visits 24/7. Our call center is open 24/7, and we will provide the visit with a family doctor. So we don't have anything against nurses, but we don't want to do triage. So we use family doctors, and when someone uses our app or our portal, they will be connected with a family doctor right away. And I'm sure we can post pictures on the app or on the web page, and so that the doctor is able to view that before the visit. And also, if it's through the video conference, they're able to see the patient as well. Of course, we offer the service in both English and French, and it's across Canada, but it's also across the US as well. So I know people are not traveling much these days, but one day the border will reopen. And because of prescriptions, it's very important that the family doctor would be where the member is. So in their province, or if they're visiting in the States, in the state where they're visiting. So we have family doctors across Canada and across the US, so it's quite helpful that way.
Right. If I could just jump in there, just a reminder to our listeners. Now, perhaps they have already listened to them, but we did have actually a whole podcast on telemedicine or virtual healthcare. That was back in episode 8. And then specifically to what you were just mentioned about being in the U.S., Our last podcast was episode 16 was on travel, and we did, just touch on being able to use that service rather than trying to go through that out-of-country coverage or travel coverage. Being able to use the virtual just would simplify things immensely.
That's fantastic.
Great.
So I thought, Lorne, I would continue with the other services that we offer. So we can offer services that would be from our nurses, so they can help the member with, for example, navigating the healthcare system or do a search for any type of issues that they might be facing. Sometimes they just want more information about their condition or the medication that they're taking, so we are able to help with that. We would be able to help also to find a specialist where the member would like to see a specialist. So sometimes, if someone lives in a smaller town, we can do a search for that town, but maybe they don't mind driving to a larger city, so we can do a search there as well. So usually we would find 3 names in each cities where the member want to go, and sometimes we're able to find a shorter wait time for those specialists, so it can be quite helpful. And we would be able to also help find a specialist outside of Canada. So sometimes members want to go back in their native country for surgery, or they want to go to the US because they have enough money to be able to pay for surgery. So we would help with that as well. And our bigger service is the expert medical opinion or the second opinion service. So we would be able to help someone that is questioning, is it the right diagnosis? Is it the best treatment for me? So if they need a surgery, for example, do I really need the surgery? And if I do need the surgery, is this the best way to do that surgery? So we would be able to do that. We collect medical files for them. We pay for it. If they had a biopsy, we will collect the tissue samples and retest them. And we would pick an expert that can be anywhere around the world to review the medical file and view the images, because if there was an MRI or a scan, we really want to review the images, not only the doctor's notes. And they will write a very comprehensive report and send it back to the member, and they can work with this report and their treating team or physician, because we do not replace their treating team or their treating physician. Our role is to provide as much information as the member would need to be able to make a decision for their physical health. And I thought I would share with you our statistics for this service, the expert medical opinion. In 68% of the time, we're going to change or modify the diagnosis, and 87% of the time, we're going to change or modify the treatment. So those are quite high percentages. And Lorne, earlier I wanted to share with you also the statistics that we have for our mental health navigator service. So in 74% of the time we change or modify the diagnosis, 81% the treatment will be improved, and 87% the medication will be changed or modified. So those again are quite significant numbers.
They really are. That is amazing. But I'm sure that probably a lot of that would come back to the fact, like you said, it's your local doctor that's not a specialist trying to do the best they can for their patients. But when you get into these specialists and the experts in very specific areas, it's you're just going to come out with a better outcome. And it's funny, I remember my wife and I were south many years ago, and I was reading a magazine. I like to read if I get a chance like that. And I remember being shocked. I think the article I read, if I remember right, it was something like 72% of diagnoses are incorrect. And that, again, that's many years ago. I'm sure your statistics are probably more up to date and more accurate. But it really pointed out to me back then how important the again, at that point, it was the best doctor's service was. And those numbers should certainly point that out.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you saw that statistic, because it's very difficult to find statistics in magazines or online, because our doctors in Canada, they're not obligated to say if they did a misdiagnose. So it's very difficult to find those statistics. That's why I always share our statistics and what we see at Best Doctors or Tele-Doc. But yeah, they are very difficult to find those stats. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I'm assuming it was one of our industry magazines. I usually catch up when I'm on vacation with my reading, so it was probably one of our industry magazines. I'm sure that I was reading. So,
right.
But yeah, that would make sense. I guess the doctors aren't going to advertise that kind of thing, right? So, okay. Well, that's probably shocking to a lot of our listeners that those numbers are so high. So I know one of the questions. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I would just like to add, I don't think it's the fault of our doctors in the healthcare system. I think it's the way the healthcare system is set up, it's very fragmented, right? So if we go see different specialists, they don't talk to each other. And also, as we all know, doctors don't have enough time with their patients. So that also is a factor in the way that we as patients are being dealt with in the healthcare system. So I don't think it's doctors' fault really. It's just the way the healthcare system is set up. Yeah. So we really want to help the healthcare system, basically. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. Okay. So a lot of people are wondering out here, okay, how does the eligibility work for the Best Doctors service? Maybe you can kind of go through who and when and what.
Right, absolutely. So basically, it's very simple. So employees, spouse, and dependents are eligible. And Empire Life provides us with a list of members. And the dependents are eligible until the age of 21, and if in school full-time, up to the age of 24. So it's not only employees that are eligible, it's also their immediate family. So it's very, very helpful, because it can be a stressor for employees to have, their spouse or their child being sick. So we really want to help the immediate family. And also, they can use a service as often as they want. There's no maximum. And all conditions are covered. So you were mentioning it earlier that in the past, specific conditions were covered, but now all conditions are covered.
Wow, that's fantastic. Right. You know what? I think we've got a little bit of time left. So I was thinking that maybe, I know you have testimonial videos and stuff on your website, but could you maybe share just a short story of one of the members that you were able to help, before we have to go?
Yes, absolutely. So I think we have, as you can imagine, a lot of great stories from members that we were able to help. But I think I would like to share with you the story from Ashifa. Ashifa is from Alberta, and I had the pleasure to meet her personally. When she shared her story with us, she agreed to do a video of her story. So I went to Alberta and filmed the video with her, and it was so great to be able to hear directly from her how we impacted her life and the life of her family as well. So basically, she had a lump on the side of her neck, and her doctor did a biopsy. It came back, it was all fine, but they decided, because it doesn't really belong there, they decided to take it out. And when we take something out of the body, it's always being tested. So they retested it, and then they called her and they said, Ashifa, we think it's cancer. They were not 100% sure because, the biopsy came back, but they were not able to identify the origin of the cancer. So they decided to go ahead with 30 rounds of chemo and 30 rounds of radiation. So those are really harsh treatments.
Yeah.
So she decided to use Best Doctors, and we did, the second opinion that I explained to you earlier. And our experts came back and they said it is not cancer. They were not sure what it was, but they were pretty sure it was not cancer. So they asked her permission to work directly with her treating team. And they worked together, and our experts asked for them to be able to do other tests for Ashifa, and they were able to all agree that it was not cancer. So she was able to avoid the 30 rounds of chemo and 30 rounds of radiation. So she was ecstatic, as you can imagine.
I can only imagine, yes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's that's a great example, right? The suffering, not only, like you said, for her, but for her family, for them to all have to go through that, the worry and everything. It's just priceless to get things right. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that it's included, Empire Life really did it right. They included physical and mental health services or solutions for all their clients, that have health benefits. And so it's so easy access. And we're really happy to partner with them and to be able to help all of the members. Yeah.
Great. And again, just a reminder, for our listeners, this is obviously Empire's, the information on their program. Best Doctors is available through other, partners that we use. Just, things you may have to pay for things or whatever. Today, we just pointed out the Empire plan because it is embedded. It's part of it. It's all within the cost. So, and it's all the services included. So,
Right.
All right. Well, that I think you've given a ton of information to our listeners today, Isabelle. I'm very happy we were able to get together and do this. So thank you very much for your time and for coming out here and sharing with our listeners.
Thank you very much for having me.
Isabelle and Lorne, this was fantastic. I appreciate all the information. I was just shocked at some of those statistics, and again, it just blows me away, some of those the numbers that you were giving, Isabelle, and just to think about having the peace of mind to have somebody else take a look, get that quote unquote second opinion. Wow. I mean, the stress reduction alone just in that part of the offering is amazing to me. So if people that are listening are interested in learning more, Lorne, how do they get more information?
Well, as always, Eric, our listeners can reach out to myself here at Curry Financial Group. So on our website, we have www.curryfinancialgroup.com. Just a side note, we're revamping and adding a bunch of information there. All our podcasts will be found there. But in specific, the information on Best Doctors, the Health Navigator, that stuff, just reach out to me and email me, lorne@curryfinancialgroup.com. I'm more than happy to get information on any of these programs out to any of the listeners.
Fantastic. Again, Isabelle, thank you so much for being on the show. And of course, Lorne, thank you so much for bringing her on the show and bringing us this valuable information. But our last thank you always goes to you, the listening audience. We wouldn't be here without you. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Benefits of Knowledge podcast with Lorne Curry. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Lorne comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your colleagues. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Curry Financial Group, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Benefits of Knowledge podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available.